Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the DLF Trade Show. Nice, it worked. We, I am
You
your.
have to stretch to come into it.
This is, you figured you'd be used to me by now, but I jumped
Oh
a little
my-
bit. Got a pregame stretch before you record, but I figured, why not? Just make it part of the intro, right? You get that, yeah, let's do this kind of feeling. I guess not. You better leave all of this because I'm just going to keep going. I am your host, Russ Fisher at Dynasty Outhouse. He is your co-host, Addison Hayes at AmazeHayes_. And we're here to talk trades. I can say trades now because we have our new format, which we did last week. And hell, we liked it. So that's really what matters, right? No, it's really, it's what all of you watching / listening / whatever you guys are doing. It's what matters. And you asked for it. So take it and like it. But we are right. We are here to take you on a 360-degree trip of trade value of a certain player every single week. Try and find pick trades, same position, other positions, all of that fun between 1QB and Superflex. So here is what we are doing today. We're doing Bobby Trees, baby. We are doing Robert Woods. We try pretty much to not just do the top end guys every single time because sooner or later they all just sort of meld together into those tier 1 guys. Robert Woods is one of those guys that you want on your team. Let's put it that way. If you're competing, you want this guy on your team. You'll see that he doesn't cost a lot to get. And if you look back at his production, it's been great. And Matt Stafford, baby, like such an upgrade. Like, it doesn't matter that it's a new quarterback in a new system. It's going to be a better quarterback in a good system throwing to a good receiver. So don't overthink that. But let's just jump straight into it, right? Let's talk about Robert Woods. In a 12-team Superflex league, Robert Woods in the trade analyzer is worth 184.6 points. Let's go down a couple of picks that Addison was nice enough to pull for us. We have a 22 first, which is worth 253.3, a 23 first, which is 213.7, the 2021 201, in case your rookie drafts did not happen yet, the 13th pick overall is 180.3, and if you want to go a little lower, the 204 or 16th pick is 139.7. Now, before we get into anything else, let's take this from both sides. If you are looking to acquire Robert Woods, clearly you're going to do the 204 because that's just whatever. But start with the 201 and those other two firsts. Which of these would you be willing to send for Robert Woods?
I would send all of these picks for Robert Woods. If I was the team that was looking to add a quality wide receiver piece, and we're talking about a guy who has previous wide receiver 1 production and will possibly do it again in 2021 and maybe next year as well with Matthew Stafford. This is a high production wide receiver asset that you want on your team as a competing team. And he doesn't cost a whole lot. Like you said, a early second round pick or maybe a future 22 or 23 first. I would be willing to send all of these. And I like to pick, and what I liked about all these 4 trades was that it kind of gave you a spectrum of here's like a low end of, picks that you could send all the way up to the highest end in terms of value. And here is the 22 first, just because that's just next year. There were other picks as well that I could have went through. There was like the 110, the 112, some of those kind of ranges from 2021. But these are all picks that I would be totally willing to send for Robert Woods, because especially those future firsts, if I'm looking to compete and I need that Robert Woods production, that future first is probably not going to be, super high. It's probably going to be a back half at worst, just because of the production that you can get from Woods. And if it's 2023 first, you're basically, mortgaging out 2 years to hopefully have some sort of production and shot at winning the championship with Woods on your team. So I'm good with all of these for Robert Woods. And I think on the flip side, obviously you'd want to get a first rounder if you are looking to sell off of Robert Woods. And I would probably go down to that 2.01. I wouldn't sell anything probably less than that 2.01 if I was selling Robert Woods. He's one of those weird guys where it's like you wouldn't sell for a second, not necessarily buying for a first. So you kind of have to find that happy medium. And I think
chances are like
show it.
You'll have to do the 201 and 204, which I would absolutely do.
I would do that too.
Yeah, you absolutely gave the right answer, which makes me happy. Like, I would be willing to send any of these picks to go get Robert Woods. And actually, I think I might have one of those offers out in one of my leagues right now, to be honest. Because I agree, Robert Woods is the perfect piece. Like, think about like 3 years ago, Jarvis Landry, like his last year on the Dolphins. Like, that's the guy that it didn't cost that much to go grab, but you wanted him on your team because he's just scoring points. But he doesn't have that clear picture of an upsided player that people don't charge that much, even though we've seen Jarvis Landry finish as like a top 5-7 wide receiver. Of course it was once, but that just shows that it's a physical possibility. And Robert Woods, I think, finished like wide receiver 8 maybe like 3 years ago, something like that. And
I think he was wide receiver 1 2 years ago. I can pull it up real quick. He was a wide receiver 13 last year, wide receiver 14 in 2019, and wide receiver 10 in 2018. So 3 consecutive years of top 15 production, including one top 10 year. And that's not like he was just because he was playing 16 games and other people got hurt. He was averaging 15 and a half to over 16 fantasy points per game every single year. So this is a guy that you want on your team in PPR leagues. And that is without really touchdown production. Like you said, like Jarvis Landry, I think is a fantastic example because the first couple of years that he was in Miami with Ryan Tannehill, the dude was like 8 for 80 every single week and only scored like 5 touchdowns on the year. And then he had that one super awesome season where he had like double-digit touchdowns and was still 8 for 80 every single week. And that was the year that he finished inside the top 5, I believe. So if we're going to have that kind of an offensive splash with Matt Stafford, who now makes Robert Woods potentially a touchdown type of, player that he hasn't been before, really, he could have that kind of top 5 ceiling at wide receiver 30 in DLF ADP price tag right now. So I think that's definitely well within the cards. And worst case scenario, he's been top 15 every single year for the last 3 years. So you're getting that as a floor.
Here's the thing, like at the 201, we're talking Bateman, Sermon, Rondale, and Elijah Moore. I'm not really a Sermon guy, but assuming this is on the clock happening, if I could get Bateman, or I think I like Rondale more than Elijah still. So like if I can get any of those 3 wide receivers, I think I would do that, mostly because let's call it like it is. Robert Woods is 29 years old. If you're not competing, you don't want a 29-year-old wide receiver on your team. You go and you get those younger guys that have the upside. 204, like even the analyzer has it as like a 50-point difference, which I get is like a third, but still, right? I don't think I'm going to do that because at that point you're past the Moores and you're looking at like Terrace Marshall and Michael Carter, like those like second running backs, which are that's a little too iffy for me.
Yep. Yeah, you definitely need Robert Woods there.
Let's go to a running back equivalent, and this is 10 team. 0.5 PPR, 1 quarterback. Robert Woods for Melvin Gordon and a third. So in 1 quarterback, Robert Woods is 237.1. The package on the other side, 107.8. Man, I'm not selling Robert Woods for that at all. Like that is not a great trade you found on the Trade Finder right there.
Yeah, this one was rough. And I will note that this was also post NFL draft. So this is Melvin Gordon with us knowing that Javonte Williams is there.
Yeah.
So this is definitely an interesting trade. And one thing that I just kind of noticed while I was going through the Trade Finder, we have one other running back equivalent, but like there weren't really running back for Robert Woods trades. There were running backs that were being packaged with Robert Woods, maybe to go to a quarterback or a better wide receiver. But, there's not really all of these, like I have a surplus of running back depth. Let me go and add to my wide receiver depth. That wasn't really happening, at least from what I noticed over the past month and a half or so, basically since the beginning of May. So this was one of them. There was one other one I will highlight that we're not going to get to next, but there was like a Nyheim Hines in a 22 second for Robert Woods. So these are like low end. I don't know where these are coming from, but if you can get that price tag for Robert Woods, you're smashing the accept button. All
right, so the next one you pulled is a much better trade. 12-team Superflex. It is Robert Woods for Kareem Hunt. This is like the perfect level of running back for the perfect level of wide receiver. This is your solid 2. You know he's not going to finish lower than a running back 2, wide receiver 2, but he's going to give you those spike games. There's going to be the games where Cleveland is losing and Hunt's going to be in there for more than Chubb because he's going to start catching passes. And we're going to have the same thing with Robert Woods. They're going to be losing. They're going to be throwing the ball more, and he'll give you that spike one week. This is perfect. And even the analyzer says so. One of those trades that are just almost equal, 186.7 to 184.6. Again, this is perfect to me. I'm assuming you agree because I said it and I'm always right.
Yeah, exactly. It's literally which side do you need on the depth? Do you need the running back side? Do you need the wide receiver side? As just because of my personal preference, I would fade towards Robert Woods. I just think that his production is much more consistent on a weekly basis and more predictable than Kareem Hunt as the backup to Nick Chubb. And so I was looking at, because there wasn't really a lot of running back equivalents, and this one made a lot of sense. You could, I think theoretically, just based on terms of ADP and where these running backs are being valued, you could replace Kareem Hunt with potentially David Montgomery, Chris Carson, Myles Gaskin, maybe like Trey Sermon or Mike Davis if you need like rentals or something like that. Those guys are all within about a round to a half a round of difference in ADP around Kareem Hunt. So I feel like they're all pretty replaceable.
Man, if you could tell me that Chris Carson's going to play a full 16, 17 games, I feel like I would go after Chris Carson over Robert Woods. The rest of them, I think I'd take Robert Woods, even though the value does seem pretty spot on. All right, so let's move down next to our quarterback in Superflex trade. Ooh, I like this one also. And it, again, very even. Robert Woods for Daniel Jones. Now, back in Superflex land, Robert Wood Jones, nice. Robert Woods is worth 184.6. Daniel Jones 178.5. Again, absolutely perfect. I think this is exactly what you're going to get. If you're sending Robert Woods and looking for a quarterback, you're going to get a guy that people don't like. Let's put that out there.
Right.
No one's really a Daniel Jones fan, and no one's convinced his job is secure. No one's convinced he's going to score a lot of points. I'm kind of behind Daniel Jones. I got to be honest a little bit. Like, I think his job is completely secure. I think anything's going to be better than last year when he literally had no one to throw the ball to except for Darius Slayton and no one running the ball behind him and an offensive line that didn't start playing until week 12. Like, the Giants did him no favors last year, and then they started doing him favors. That offensive line, they moved it around. It started clicking towards the end. You get Kadarius Toney, who is going to make defenses actually respect the pass because that dude can run. And then you're getting Saquon Barkley back, who we discussed last week, we think is still elite. So I think this offense,
Kenny Galladay is kind of good.
Kenny Galladay is kind of good. How did I forget? Yeah, exactly. So rising tides, raises all ships, and that Daniel Jones is one of those ships. So I'm behind Daniel Jones. And if you can do this, man, even if you don't need a quarterback, I do this move because Daniel Jones is going to start scoring points and his value is going to go up. Daniel Jones is 24 years old. Robert Woods is 29 years old. Robert Woods' value is never going to get higher. Let's call it what it is. He's a 29-year-old wide receiver who, since it took him leaving Buffalo to get respect on his name, it's never going to raise his value. He's stuck at what he is. He's Doug Baldwin. He's Adam Thielen. He's these guys that didn't really... Robert Woods did technically have decent draft capital. It just took him a while to do anything with it. But if you're going to move him for a quarterback, you move him from someone like Daniel Jones, who has this low value now, but has a very easy path to rising in value. So even if you don't need the quarterback on your team, you get him because in 4 months, when someone loses a quarterback or someone's quarterback gets benched, they're going to come after Daniel Jones and you're going to have to make them pay. Or you don't have to, but you should make them pay because they're coming after a quarterback when they need one. And in Superflex, that's the power spot in Superflex.
Right. That was the exact route that I was going to go with. And just going off of Robert Woods, and you need a quarterback, and targeting Daniel Jones as that quarterback because the value's there and it makes sense. And looking at ADP in terms of where Jones is being valued amongst other quarterbacks, he's in this like weird kind of area where it's like a bunch of either really old guys like Tom Brady or Matt Ryan's like right there, or other guys who just kind of like are meh to a lot of people, like Kirk Cousins, Sam Darnold, Derek Carr. So Daniel Jones, realistically, like I'm looking at the quarterbacks that are ahead of him. It goes from he's quarterback 23. Matt Ryan is QB 18. Then it goes Ryan Tannehill, Zach Wilson, Carson Wentz, and Mac Jones. So I could realistically see Daniel Jones if he has, a pretty good season with Kenny Galladay. I'm not talking like a Josh Allen with Stephon Diggs type of rise, but if he has like a good season, I could realistically see him bumping Carson Wentz, at least in terms of another vet, bumping Matt Ryan, because now we're going to have another year of are the Falcons going to draft a quarterback or not?
And no Julio's going to hurt.
Yeah. And then, Mac Jones, what is Mac Jones? What is Zach Wilson a year from now? Ryan Tannehill, I feel like could still be in the mix there because he still has AJ Brown and Julio Jones.
Yep.
But like now you're talking about a QB 23 now who's potentially borderline top 15 next, by the end of the year. That's the type of outcome that you could realistically see from Daniel Jones. And that could almost just happen even if he has an okay season.
I feel like all he has to do is minimize his turnovers. Everyone hated the fact that he fumbled a bunch. And I mean, I don't remember how many interceptions he threw, but once he started the word fumbling, everyone got upset with turnovers and all of that stuff. So it all just sort of melded together. So if he just holds on to the ball a little better, I think that alone will raise his value. And assuming there's zero rumblings of them bringing in another quarterback, which there absolutely should be zero rumblings. So again, we're both behind Daniel Jones. Maybe we're both just Giants fans and don't know it. I mean, at least not New Jersey.
Maybe. Is there, just to hit on this real quick, is there a good argument for you have Daniel Jones and you need wide receiver going Robert Woods then? I'm assuming if you are a team that has 4 quarterbacks maybe, or maybe you had Daniel Jones and then you were able to draft one of the rookies this year. Like you were able to draft Zach Wilson or Mac Jones. You could, pivot off of Daniel Jones to a wide receiver.
Especially if you're the person that doesn't believe all that stuff we just said. If you just happen to have Daniel Jones and you grab Zach Wilson and you like his upside better, absolutely. Because if your team, again, this all depends on if your team is competing, because you're not going to do that if you're not. But if you are, you absolutely do this, because at least most leagues have a decent amount of starting spots. And especially if you have a league where you need to start 3 wide receivers, like that just increases Robert Woods' value. Because you don't have to start 2 quarterbacks in a super flex league. But if you have to start 3 wide receiver 2s get so much more valuable. So I absolutely see that, especially if it doesn't really hurt your QB depth. If I only have 3, like if Daniel Jones is my QB 3, I won't feel safe. If it's June, I might still do it. But like if we're in the season, there would have to be a lot more feel going on. Value wise, I think I do it if it makes me. If it doesn't hurt my QB room and makes me feel better about like the overall status of my team, I am absolutely doing that, because again, I think the value is there. If you're like me and you don't care about positions whatsoever in June, I think I hold on to Daniel Jones. But if you're one of those people that cares about starting lineups, yes, absolutely. Yeah,
good deal.
All right, so here's my favorite part of the show now. We have the overpay and underpay, and I purposely did not look at these trades just so I can take it in all at once. Okay, here's our overpay trade. 12-team Superflex. Wow, okay, there's names here, man. We have Dalvin Cook, Devontae Adams, and Alexander Mattison for Kareem Hunt, Dak Prescott, Robert Woods, and Corey Davis, which comes... Wow. Okay. Which comes in the trade analyzer. Wait, that can't be right. Dak Prescott can't be worth 286. You had to have put this in the wrong.
I did not. I did mess up somewhere, but I did not mess up the trade or the values. This was in a one quarterback league.
Oh, that's gross then.
I just didn't change the part where it said it was a 12-team Superflex. So
okay, then we need to talk about this even worse.
One quarterback. And that is why the values.
This is literally a double pay. The Cook and Devontae Adams side is 1657.3. The Kareem Hunt, Robert Woods, Dak Prescott, Corey Davis is 845. That's gross. There's zero reason for this. Like, I really hope if you are listening to this or watching this, again, I don't do what you do, and this was you, please let us know that this was like a dispersal fix. Like, someone did a dispersal draft and you needed to swap them. Like, because really, I'm so sorry if you made this trade in real life.
Yeah. Yep. If you're thinking about making a trade like this, message us on Twitter. Our handles here, and just clear it. Just be like, hey, should I trade Dalvin Cook and Devontae Adams for Dak Prescott, Robert Woods, and Kareem Hunt in one quarterback league? And we'll make sure to make sure that you don't do that.
Or on the other way around, if someone offers you Dalvin Cook and Devontae Adams, don't message us, just hit accept.
Yeah, don't waste your time. That time that you are messaging
they might
us,
come to their senses.
Yeah.
Go grab it.
Yeah. So.
Oh man, we're going to get to some silliness right here. Silliness. Let's talk about the underpay. Robert Woods for Josh Reynolds.
Straight up.
I'm gonna assume this was before the Julio news.
This was a couple weeks ago.
Because everyone was going crazy that they didn't bring anyone else in, so Josh Reynolds is the guy because there's literally no one else. So what? There's what? 3 years difference in their age, except for the fact that Josh Reynolds has never showed he could be anything in the NFL. And Robert Woods, like we've told you, has shown he can be. Yeah, I mean, let's just call that what it is. If you're going to sell Robert Woods, the reason you're selling him is to get the value. This is going to be tough to word because you want the value now. Like, you don't want something that might increase in value. If you're selling Robert Woods, you want at least a pick, right? Like, you want something that has value right now because you're selling production for now. Selling Robert Woods for someone who might be something that doesn't click in my brain, especially at the same position. It seems weird. I don't like this trade, which I think is the point of putting it. Well, I know it's the point of putting it on here, but I'm like shook by it.
Yeah. This was clearly not a good trade, even if Julio wasn't traded to Tennessee.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And Josh Reynolds was the wide receiver too there. This was still a really, really bad trade.
And I didn't even read it out. This is 237.1 to 20.2. Well, that sounds like a wonderful ending note for this week's episode of the DLF Trade Show. Again, host Russ Fisher, Dynasty Outhouse. Again, co-host Addison Hayes at @AmazeHayes_. Again, DM us if you have the horrible idea of trading 2 studs for a bunch of not studs, or don't DM us if someone offers you 2 studs for a bunch of not studs. Just hit accept. We'll see you next time.